Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books. It's been a while since I actually sat down and filmed, and I feel really behind on my wrap-ups, though in reality I will be caught up real soon. So today I'm here to talk about the books that I read in February. Even though I posted no videos in February, I thought it was still worthwhile to talk about these books because there are some really good ones in this pile, and some just so ones. So let's get started. The first book that I finished in February was Los Abismos by Pilar Quintana. And I've been looking for books by this particular author, and my library happened to have this one, so I picked it up. It tells the story from a young girl's point of view as her parents start having trouble in their relationship and as things begin to change. And it was a really interesting look, difficult at times because of having to see things in an adult relationship through the point of view of the child. So this was definitely a solid book for me, but I don't think it's this author's best work, and I want to read more of her work. I want to see what else she has available. So all in all, a solid book, but I think I need to read more from that author. The second book that I finished in February was Concealed in Death. This is book number 38 in the In Death series. And, with a long running series like this one that has over 50 books, there's going to be some misses. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to stop reading the series. This one was definitely not the best one in it for me, especially because of all the talks about Africa. Africa comes up a few times in it, and it just felt like it was like the 1980s or 1990s version of Africa as opposed to a future Africa, which is the setting of the story. We're talking a few decades into the future in a world that is much advanced, but clearly racist attitudes hadn't evolved enough. So anyways, this has been one of my least favorite books in the In Death series. Next on my list is a book that I absolutely loved. It's a young adult contemporary romance book. In it, it's Breathe and Count Back from 10 by Natalia Sylvester. I was approached with an ARC, an early advanced reader's copy of it via NetGalley, and I immediately said yes. I was a little bit skeptical because I haven't been getting along all that well with young adult books as of late, but this book just caught my attention. You're following a girl who is an immigrant, or the daughter of immigrants, and her parents are super paranoid about a lot of things. She's recently received her green card, but still that anxiety over immigration and over her health has not disappeared. She's been having health issues since she was young, and they continue. Her parents are sure that she's going to need a surgery real soon, and they don't have a ton of money, so this is all something that has to be planned ahead of time. At the same time, our main character, she just wants to be free. But she's very aware of her responsibilities to her family, to her sister, to the people around her. But she just wants to be a mermaid. And there happens to be a mermaid amusement park in this town in Florida. And I think it's based on an actual amusement park. And a spot becomes open for a new mermaid in the ensemble. And she really wants to try out. She knows her parents will hate it. I just related so much to our main character, that feeling of being the eldest daughter in an immigrant family, the responsibilities, but also that desire to just follow your dreams and somehow balance it out with responsibilities. It was just felt very real to me, very relatable. I do have to give some content warnings here. There's a lot of ableism because of the main character's disability. There is a sexual assault that occurs. There's a lot of sexism and discussions of depression that occur in the story. So if any of those are triggers for you, you wanna be careful there. But overall, I think this was just so well written. The characters felt so real to me, and I personally connected very much to the main characters. So I really enjoyed that. I will put all the information down below because I believe the book has not come out yet, but hopefully I'll be having a dedicated review for this book as soon as it is released. The next book that I finished in February was Bluebird by Attica Locke, and this is book number 1 in the Highway 59 series. And I think there's only 2 books out in this series, but I'm hooked. I am just so hooked. I suggested this book for my book club, and we loved it. We loved this book. It follows a main character who is a Texas Ranger. He's Black. He comes from a prominent Black family in Texas, but at the same time, he is very aware of his role, one, as a member of a prominent Black family in Texas, but also as one of the few Black Texas Rangers, and his role especially in rural communities. He's under investigation when the story starts, and little by little we're told a little bit about the incident that leads to him being under investigation, and basically not officially a Texas Ranger. He gets a call from his friend at the FBI, though there's something weird happening in this part of rural Texas, and he, like him, our main character, to go and investigate. So he does. He goes and investigates, and then we start unraveling, what the life of this small rural Texan town is like. So there are a lot of themes of racism, sexual assault, and just it deals with some heavy themes, but I really enjoyed it. This fed in my little procedural heart. There's something I really love about procedurals, both in television and in book form, but this one especially because of the racial themes and the themes of racism, and the way that the main character is positioned in a way to look at different aspects of this community just felt so good. And I have not loved like a mystery book this much in a while, and I just really loved it. So I'm so glad I picked it up, and I can't wait to pick up book number 2 in the series. Then I really needed something lighter. So I picked up Island Affair by Priscilla Oliveras. So this is a romance novel set in Key West, and it follows an influencer who arrives in Key West, and she's meant to be having this family vacation, and she promised her family that she was going to bring her boyfriend along to meet the family. And her mom has recently beat cancer, and so everybody's tiptoeing a little bit around mom. The goal is to make mom happy on this vacation, but right at the beginning, her boyfriend calls her and tells her he's not going to show up. So she breaks up with him. In comes our main hero, who happens to be a firefighter in Key West, and the sparks fly. It is a Latinx story. Our main hero is Latinx, and that forms part of the story. Because his family is Cuban American, and so they have those discussions about food, about family, about race. And our hero is somebody he's a good guy. And part of his personality is built around his status as a good guy, which for the most part is good, except when it gets in the way of relationships. In the meantime, our heroine is dealing with these feelings of feeling like a disappointment to her family, because she comes from a family of high achievers. They are all doctors, and she's the only one that is not. And so I really enjoyed those themes. I thought Priscilla Oliveras did a fantastic job with this story. In fact, I think this is my favorite Priscilla Oliveras I've read so far. And I am so excited for the next one that's coming out. Not in the Key West series. There is a second book in the Key West series, but she's coming out with a book involving a mariachi contest. And I'm really excited about that one because I really, really enjoyed this one, and I haven't enjoyed one of her romance novels in the same way. I do have to say, though, this Low Heat book is one of those kind of fade to dark, closed door. So there's no explicit sex scenes in it, but there's still a lot of chemistry, a lot of sexiness in here. Is just closed door. So actually, if you don't like a lot of sex scenes in your romance novels, Priscilla Oliveras is an excellent author for that, because her books tend to be low heat. Again, I think this one, all these terms are a little bit weird, because I'm like, low heat is not necessarily the way I would describe this book, because there's so much chemistry between the main characters, but it is a closed door romance that you will not find any explicit sex scenes in here. The next book that I finished was another romance novel. This is Something to Talk About by Meryl Wilsner. So this is a female-female romance set in contemporary Hollywood, where you're following a big-time television producer, creator, who's just being given the opportunity to direct her first big-budget film, and her assistant. There's always been a little bit of something between her and the assistant, but now it really starts coming out. That actually was handled really well, because it could have been really bad, right? Because it could be sexual harassment in the workplace. But the author handles it beautifully, and there's nothing that ends up feeling icky about the relationship and the way that is handled. On the other hand, there were elements of that were a little bit uncomfortable. Yeah, especially in the chemistry between the two characters. So it was not a total win as a romance novel for me. But I liked it, and I am looking forward to reading more from the author. I believe this was her debut novel, so I definitely want to read more from her. On the other hand, if you like the Hollywood setting, I think this might be a book for you. I'm not big on Hollywood settings for romance novels, but if you are, you're going to enjoy it more than I did. And for sure, the female relationship was a really nice and sweet one. It was so sweet. I did enjoy it, but I think it will work even better for other romance readers. All right, I was really on a romance binge at the end of February. The next book that I finished, it's another ARC, so an early advanced reader's copy of A Caribbean Heiress in Paris by Adriana Herrera. This is book number 1 in the Leona series, due to come out I will put the date down below in the description box, and I will definitely have a dedicated review to this book. If you've watched any of my videos before I start posting, you know how much I love Adriana Herrera. She's a Dominican writer who writes really fantastic romance novels, because she manages to weave in a lot of social justice themes in her novels. And this is her first novel-length historical romance set in 19th century Paris during the World's Fair. Our main character is a rum heiress. She's at the World's Fair to exhibit her rum, but also to set off on her own. Her father has passed away, and it's time for her to branch out on her own. And so she goes to this World's Fair in the hopes of getting her business off the ground there, making connections and making money. Enter a whiskey distiller from Scotland, who's also there to exhibit his alcohol. And I just really, really loved it. I knew from the moment Herrera announced the premise of this series and the premise of this book that I knew I was going to love it. So I'm not being objective in any way, shape, or form here. The setting, set in Paris, that you follow a Latinx heroine who is an heiress, so she doesn't need anybody else's money. She's also a very confident woman, and she has a great group of friends that are her support system. There was no way I was gonna dislike this book, but on top of that, Adriana Herrera's writing she writes to my soul, like she just does. And this is my favorite book I've read so far this year, I think. I cannot say enough wonderful things, but I should stop here and tell you to wait for my full-length review, dedicated review of this book, because there's just so many wonderful themes in this book, and it's I can't wait to talk more about it. Next, the last book I finished in February was Queen Move by Kennedy Ryan. I've been meaning to read more Kennedy Ryan, and this was a highly praised book in the romance world, so I knew I had to read it, and I liked it. I wish I had known a little bit more about the premise before I picked it up, because I kind of picked it up without knowing too much about it, but it's a book in which you're following these two main characters and that are kind of not later in life, they're like in their 30s, I think, late 30s, and they've both gone and have full lives after having a childhood together, after growing up. And so the story starts off, going back and forth between the present and the past, so that you get to see how their relationship developed as kids, and then how it's been left off in the childhood phase, and then now that they've come back to the same town as adults with careers, with full lives, how they manage to reignite that romantic spark that was there from an early age. And not that you're gonna see like so much romantic spark when they're children, because it's mostly about their friendship when they're children, but they went their different ways when they were starting to hit puberty, and so they were each other's first kiss. Now they've had full lives and they're coming back together, and they're having to navigate the complexity of having had full lives. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Our main character is a political operative who just helped elect the a president of the United States, and I actually really enjoyed it. That was the part, although, that originally threw me off. Her family is a prominent Black family in the South, and so she has so much confidence and self-assurance. I loved seeing that, and so she knows Southern politics, and she knows what she wants, and she knows how to get it, and I really enjoyed the heroine here. At the same time, the hero knows who he is now. He has fully developed as a person. He knows who she is, and he's willing to do whatever it takes. And she is the one that still needs to figure some things, if that is what she wants. And I just really love those tropes, those dynamics. Again, the political setting threw me off a little bit because her job is so political that it comes in a lot. But once I realized, okay, that's what it is, there's a lot of politics in this, I actually really kind of fell in love with it, and I might have to go back and read the book that was earlier in the series. Yeah, because this is book number 3 in All the King's Men. So I probably have to go back and read some of the other ones, because I was really intrigued by those political dynamics and the political setting that I know take place in the other two books as well. But this was fantastic. I definitely want to read more Kennedy Ryan. But my only warning is that about the politics. If you're not somebody that likes a lot of politics in your books, then this might not be for you. But it was definitely for me. Yeah, so those were all the books that I finished in February. It was a bit of a slow reading month, in part because I was traveling and things changed dramatically. Like, I thought February was gonna go one way, and then it swerved because life happens, and it went a totally different way. And so I spent a large chunk of February like trying to readjust my expectations of what work and life were going to look like. That was also why I had to take a break from YouTube, because I just, when you're dealing with a lot of change and things like that, you just sometimes have to focus. But I've really missed the BookTube community. I've missed chatting with you all. So please let me know if you've read any of these books. If you have any recommendations for what Kennedy Ryan book I should read next, please leave them down below, because I'm really excited to read more Kennedy Ryan. If you're excited for A Caribbean Heiress in Paris, also let me know, because I'm so excited for everybody to get their hands on this book and to read this historical romance. All right, I'll leave it there. That is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.